Richard, we need to diagnose a problem and come up with a solution. The problem is that Deutsche Bank isn't doing very well. We have a new boss there. Jain is out, Cryan is in. What is the disease and what's the medicine?
The disease is a bank which has gone absolutely nowhere under the current management in share price terms. The disease is also one that, despite recovering quite strongly post-crisis, is still delivering a return on tangible equity in the low single digits. In fact, so low it's almost a rounding error.
And is doing that even while carrying high leverage.
Stacks of leverage.
Right, so you would think as volatility came up, we would have seen a great explosion in returns at such a levered bank, and we simply didn't see that.
You would think, but that's the problem. You see, you can have lots of cheap money, you can have a wall of assets, and if they're not, if you're subtracting costs from that,
yes,
you end up, especially Deutsche's cost base, you end up with a machine that not firing blanks. It's far from broken, but it's a bank that is just underwhelming.
And that was sort of my analysis when I wrote yesterday, that looking from the outside, and banks are hard things to assess from the outside, the costs look terrible.
They're elevated. Their cost-to-income ratio is way up in the high 80s.
So how does the new guy handle that? I mean, this kind of thing can become very entrenched.
He's got to get out a scalpel and get cutting, because that cost base in the high 80s under the Anshu, Jain, Jürgen, Fitschen target was only coming down to 65 in 5 years' time.
Yes.
That is still way too high.
And way too long.
And way too long, far too long. So I think Mr. Cryan, John Cryan, ex-UBS CFO, former FIG banker, financial institutions group advisor, he knows how to fix this sort of thing as an outsider. He's now going to be the man sitting in the hot seat doing it. And the medicine is the same. You've got to cut costs and you've got to allocate capital much more efficiently. Now, the previous or the outgoing CEOs, co-CEOs, have both made efforts to do this, but they haven't really been pushing the hard enough button.
I mean, the question I have on this is that is it really possible? Again, my view, this is an investment bank. They can't go the traditional route of taking capital out by moving away from that core investment banking business, because it's sort of all they have. They can't realistically go to retail or to wealth management.
Yeah, it's only really a slight universal bank. It's got retail and wealth management, but they're tiny compared to the monster, the flow monster they call its investment banking business. But Goldman can do it. Yes. Goldman's getting a return in the double digits. Okay, it's 10, but it's profitable and it's got focus and it's got a wealth management business of sorts. So what is so different about Deutsche?
Well,
culture?
What we hear, yes, is that it's culture. So Goldman Sachs, as rapacious and avaricious a reputation as it has, also has a reputation of being a very team-oriented and institution-oriented place. I think the question is whether the new boss can create a productive culture like that at Deutsche Bank, because that ultimately is the way you control those costs.
Yeah, and he is yet another man coming in from outside. He's not homegrown talent in the sense that he hasn't risen up through the ranks. But you almost need a complete outsider to shake up this business, because Jürgen Fitschen's been around, Anshu Jain's been around, they've been there for ages. They're pretty expert guys. They haven't been able to fix it. What is really going on here must be culture. Now, from the outside looking in, very hard to know exactly what's wrong. But when you see the payout ratio and you see the high compensation or the high salary to income ratio, you realize a little bit what's going wrong. And another German, Sir Sigmund Warburg, years ago, always used to say, 1/3 for the pot of every pound we earn, 1/3 for shareholders, and 1/3 for overheads. And that was a pretty easy formula. And I think only JP Morgan actually is heading in that direction, even under Mr. Diamond.
Thanks very much, Richard.